Hi, I'm Mrs McTaggart and I'm going to take you through the paper 2 solutions for the practice paper D. Okay, so question 1 is your standard percentage question, always a nice start to your paper. We have house prices rising by 2.5%. So the quick method of doing this is, you can do this mentally, is you start with 100% and you add on 2.5 and that gives you 102.5%. As a decimal, you divide that by 100 and this makes your multiplier 1.025. Now we're increasing it for 3 months, so we do it to the power 3 times 153100. And then you go put that in your calculator and you get this. You get 164871.95. Now it then says put your answer to 3 significant figures, so that means we're keeping the 164, but the 8 is going to change that, so that's 165 and then 3 zeros. So that will be the average price rise in 3 months. Question 2 is a mean and standard deviation. So I'm going to create a wee bit of space and then we're going to do that one. So there's 2 different methods for standard deviation. This is the one I use. It might be that you've been shown the other one. So you add all those up and they come to 99. So your mean is 99 divided by 6, because there's 6 numbers in the list, which is 16.5. Now normally I would say to double check that because we don't like ones with decimals, but this one is definitely a decimal one. So we're going to do, the middle column is each of your numbers on the left take away 16.5. So we've got minus 1.5, 1.5, minus 2.5, 0.5, minus 0.5, and just if you're not sure, use your calculator. There's nothing to say you have to do this mentally, and that gives you 2.5. Now, you then have to square all those numbers, so please remember when you square a number, there won't be any decimals, and I'm just doing this in a bit of a random order. So the 2.5 squared gives you this. The 1.5 squared is 2.25. So there's not a huge amount of working out to do, you've only got a couple to do, and that's that. Then we add all those up and you get 17.5. Now the formula for this one is standard deviation equals the sum of your x minus x bars all squared. Now that's just basically the total of that column, so that's your 17.5 goes up the top. And the number at the bottom, n is 6, right? So you've got 6 numbers in your list, so n minus 1 is 5. You then go work that out in your calculator, so it's the square root of 3.5, which is, to 2 decimal places, because it hasn't mentioned rounding, is 1.87. Okay, so there's the 2 things we're after. The mean is 16.5 and the standard deviation is 1.87. Right, then it gives you this other bit and it says, later the 6 seedlings are measured again. Every single seedling has grown by 4 millimetres. We have to state the new mean and the standard deviation. Now, state means there is absolutely no working, all right? Now, to explain this to a class, I always talk about the example of me and my brother. We're 2 years apart in age. Now, in 10 years' time, our average age will have gone up by 10 years. And in 10 years' time, the gap between our ages won't be any different. And this relates to standard deviation. If all of these plants have grown by 4 millimetres, then the mean is just going to go up by 4 millimetres as well. So the mean would go up to 20.5 millimetres, as long as they've all grown the same amount. Now the standard deviation, if they've all grown the exact same amount, there's never going to be any more spread in the age. Think of me and my brother, we're always going to be 2 years apart no matter how old we are. So the spread is no different. So the standard deviation stays the exact same. And I like those ones because to me that's much easier than writing those horrible statements. Okay, next question asks you to solve this algebraically. So this is one of your all sine tan cos questions. Your first step is to rearrange it so that it's sin x equals. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that plus 1 over, and that will give you negative 3. Then I'm going to divide by 4. Sine is negative, so I'm not using all in sine, I'm using the opposite boxes. I'm using tan and cos because I'm looking for when my sine graph is negative 3/4 and they fall after 180, which is your tan and cos boxes. Your acute angle, the one that comes out in your calculator, so you do inverse sine of 3/4. Do not put that negative in, okay? The negative just helps you decide what you're doing once you get the answer. So shift sine of 3/4 gives me, now I do need this whole angle, so it's 48.5, so that's 49 degrees. So in the tan box, we do 180 plus our 49. And in our cos box, we do 360 minus 49. Now that makes your two answers. Now use your calculator if you're not sure. You don't want to mess up in simple addition. So that gives us 229 and 311 degrees. So that's your two answers. And always communicate what your final two answers are. I never ever write x equals at the point where I get the 49, I call it your acute angle because you may not be using that number at all. So the answers are 229 and 331. Question 4 is our simultaneous equations question. They ask you to use x and y for adults and children. This is old-fashioned. They don't do that anymore now. They just ask you to form an equation, so it would be perfectly okay to use A and C as adult and children, but because they've asked for x and y, I'm going to have to go with that one. So a short way of writing this is 14 adults plus 4 children cost this. So I've got 14x, I'm going to write it down here, so 14x plus 4y equals £55. The second equation is 13 adults plus 6 children. So 13 adults plus 6 children equals 54.50. Now when I teach simultaneous equations, I always teach to get the middle two the same, 1 a plus, 1 a minus. So I'm going to turn these both into a 12. I'm going to times the top one by 3 and the bottom one by -2. So multiplying the top one by 3, 3 times 14 is 42. So I've got 42x plus 12y equals 165. Bottom one all doubled is -26x, -12y, and double that gives me £109. Then it's just a case of adding these two rows together. Now it is a calculator paper, so make sure you're being extra careful with the calculator. 42 take away 26 is 16x. The 12s will cancel out, and the 165 minus 109 gives you 56. Divide 56 by 16, and you get 3.5. Now normally you think, oh, wait a minute, a decimal, we don't like those, but 3.5 is an alright decimal, and in the context of the question we're looking for the price of an adult, so that would be £3.50, so that's okay. Now you've got x, you sub that into one of the equations. I'm going to use the top one. So I'm going to do 14 times 3.5 plus 4y equals 55. Multiply that by 14, that gives me 49. Plus 4y is 55. Move the 49 over, so that gives me 55 take away 49 is 6. 6 divided by 4 is 1.5. Now to finish the question, you have to write adult equals. So remember, adult was the x. So an adult was £3.50 and a child was £1.50. If you don't do it in terms of money, i.e. adding your zeros, you won't get full marks. If you don't write adult and child, you won't get full marks. Okay, my next question is a quadratic. It wants the line of symmetry of the graph. So the line of symmetry is always goes through the first part of your coordinates. So it's this bit here. Now, the line of symmetry is -3. Any point on that line, the x coordinate is -3. So the equation is x equals -3. Alright? If you don't put the x in, you don't get full marks. Then it says write down the equation of the parabola. So they've got the general form up here. So the equation of the parabola is x equals, it's moved to -3, so you do the opposite and you put a +3 in the bracket, and then it's moved down 4, so you put -4 on the end. Then it asks for the coordinates of C. Now at the moment, I know C is a long nothing because it's lying on the y-axis, So it's along nothing, and I just don't know the up bit. I don't know the y coordinate. Now, because I know the first number is 0, I know my x coordinate is 0. So what I'm going to do is into my equation, I'm going to sub in x equals 0. So I'm going to have y equals 0 plus 3 all squared take away 4. So that's just 3 squared take away 4, which is 9 take away 4, which is 5. So the coordinate of C is 0, 5, and that kind of matches the picture because it's a positive number. Okay, so this question asks us to work out the length of B to D, and I'm just going to mark that on. So that's what we are finding. So I'm just going to focus on this triangle here, the ABD triangle. When looking for a side, always assume cosine rule first of all. If you know two sides and the angle in between, then you can use the long cosine rule one. So that's what we're going to be doing. So that's the one on your formula sheet that says a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. B and C are just your two sides, either side, so that will be the 7.8 and the 11.1. And I'm just going to have to take two lines to do this. And that is cos 110. Now you go to your calculator, and this is the one you just type all in one go. And it gives you 243.27. Now remember, that's what a squared was. We still have to square root the number. Now I'm not rounding it, I'm just leaving the full thing on my calculator. So normally I would write the 3 dots, square root and get your answer. And it gives us 15.59. I'm going to round it to 15.6, so it'll go to 15.6 anyway. So that is the length of B to D. It then asks for the area of the garden. Now the the garden is made up of two triangles. The one that I've drawn round in blue pen, which is the 7.8 and 11.1, and the other one that has the 15.6 in here now. So we have to do area of a triangle twice and then add them together. So the blue triangle will be doing A equals half AB sine C. And it uses two sides and the angle in between again. So we're doing a half times 7.8 times 11.1 times sine 110. Get that answer, which is 40.68. We'll go do the same for the other triangle. Oops. So the other triangle is the one on the kind of left-hand side. So that is the one using the 78 for your angle. So our sides are the 15.6 you worked out in part A, the 9.3 and the sine 78. And that gives us 70.95. So the total area of the garden is your 40.68 plus the 70.95, which is 111.63, and it would be meters squared for area. Okay, so if you're sitting stuck and you don't know how to do part A, you'd at least be able to get the area of the ABD triangle. You could always make up B to D and then still get full marks for part B, as long as you draw it on your diagram. Okay, question 7. It's not an obvious one, but it's a tunnel tanker question. So we've got a doorway, and all this information's here. We know the radius is 500. We know that to the start of the arch is 1800 and right to the top of the arch is 2000. So I'm just going to draw a better diagram for this one. And we want the width of the doorway. So I'm going to draw this shape out here. So this is our part of our circle. This is what we are after. Okay. If I split this up here, there are my right angle triangles. So I've just put the chord in. That is the width of the doorway. So that's what we're after. I know that my radius, my slope is 500. I know that the doorway up to here was 1800, but the doorway right to the top was 2000. Now that means that this little bit here is 200. So from a chord to the end was 200. Now, if your radius was 500, then this full bit here, if I change my pen, this full bit here is 500. Less the 200 makes this bit in here 300. So here is a triangle I'm going to use. The one with the 500 and the 300. I'm going to work out that little bit there. And then once I get that, I'll double that to get the width. Okay? So it's Pythagoras for a short side. So we're going to do x squared equals 500 squared, take away 300 squared. And if we type that in, it gives you 16 with 4 zeros. When you square root that, you will get 400. Okay, so if x is 400, remember we've got 2 of them, so the width is 2 times 400. The width is 800 millimetres. Okay, so the starting off of that one's a bit trickier because it doesn't look your standard tunnel tanker question. Okay, next question says find the values of k so that this trinomial here has equal roots. So the minute you see that it has equal roots, then that means that b squared minus 4ac equals 0. So our a is the first number, our b isn't a number there, but there is a negative k in front of x. So your b is negative k and our c is 2. So b squared will be negative k squared, so that just becomes k squared, minus 4 times 2 times 2. So you've got k squared minus 16. Now there's 2 ways to go here. I instantly see that as a difference of 2 squares. So that's x minus 4x plus 4. Break both of them equal to 0. You get that k minus 4 is 0, k plus 4 is 0. So k equals positive 4, k equals negative 4 is your answers. Alternatively, if I go back to this line here, some people might take the 16 over and then say, right, k is the square root of 16, and then you might just say the k is 4. If you go back to the question, it says values. That means plural. So completing the square brought me out the 2 answers, plus and minus 4. If you're doing this way where you move the 16 over, you have to remember that when you square root 16, it could have been 4 times 4, or it could have been minus 4 times minus 4. So what we do is we write a wee plus or minus there. So it means that k could be plus or minus 4. You could also just write that as k equals 4 or minus 4 as well. So just watch which method you use for that one. My next question is looking for the volume of a box. Now the box is like a prism with a pentagon on the top. So the volume for a prism is V equals AH. So it's the area of the top of the shape times how deep it is in this case. So I know my height is 8, but I don't know my area. Now the area of a pentagon is made with 5 identical triangles. So that side is also 10, and the angle in the middle is 360 divided by 5, which is 72. So the area of a triangle is half AB sine C. So we are doing a half times 10 times 10 times sine 72. Now I've got 5 of these, so the option is you can multiply it by 5 just now, or you can get the answer and then multiply it by 5. I know there's 5 of the triangles, so I'm just going to stick the times by 5 on just now to save my wee line of working. Type that in and you have... Oops-a-daisy. You have an answer of 237.76. So the total volume of the shape is 237.76 for your area times the depth of 8. Now I'm using the exact answer that was still on my calculator screen, and you get 1902.11 centimetres with a 3 because it is volume. Okay, so it's area of a triangle, 5 of them because it's a pentagon, times it by the depth to get the volume. Okay, question 10, something's gone missing on the question. I'm guessing that it was a singular fraction and it had an x in the bottom. Now, I don't know what that number in the top was. It could have been a 1, it could have been a 2. I'm just going to go with it as a 2 and work you through it anyway. So I do smile and kiss for this one. So the kissing part gives you x bracket x plus 3 for your denominator. The top line cross multiplying gives you 4x plus 2 in front of the bracket x plus 3. We tidy up the top line, times it out, gives you 2x plus 6. Don't bother expanding that bottom line because it could lead to mistakes. So tidying up the top, 4 add 2 is 6, and that gives you that. Again, I don't know if that's fully right because I've just made up what that number was. It was definitely an x in the bottom and some kind of singular number on the top. Oh, question 11. So this is a quadratic problem. A lawn has a path 1 metre wide on all sides. We have to show that. So the nice thing about these questions is, see, even if you can't do the show that bit, the second part is factorise into 2 brackets and then split it up, right? But we have to show that this thing here. Now, they're talking about the length and the breadth. So the first thing is the breadth is x, which we've got. It says the length is 3 times its breadth, so we're going to say that the breadth is 3x, because it's 3 times that one. And it tells you that the lawn equals the path. That's really important. So the lawn equals the path. So I'm going to find the area of each bit. So the area of the lawn is 3x times x. So the area of the lawn is 3x squared. I'm then going to split up the path into lots of different sections. So I'm going to split it up like this, and I'm going to change my pen colour to red. So the area of this bit here is 1 times x, so that area is x. Same on the other side, it's just x times 1 because the path is 1 wide. If the path is 1 wide, then that means that the wee squares in the corners are 1 times 1, which is 1. And then this bit along here is 3x times 1, so the actual area of that section is just 3x. So if I add up the whole bit for the lawn, I've got 3 plus 1 plus 1. Sorry, the path 3 plus x gives me 5x plus 2. So this is the path. Okay? And the lawn is 3x squared. Now if they're equal to each other, then I'm going to put them equal. So I can say, well, 3x squared equals the 5x plus 2. And then all I have to do is bring everything to one side. The 5 becomes negative, the 2 becomes negative, and then you'll see it matches up to what's there. So from there, they ask you then to hence find the length of the lawn. So even if you can't do part A, this is your starting point. This trinomial here is where you start for part B. You're going to put this into 2 brackets. So it's going to be 3x and x. Different methods of going and doing this. So I'll do 3x and x at the side. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 5. Now I reckon it goes that way. 3 times 2 would be 6. 1 times 1 would be 1. To get minus 5, then that 6 would have to be negative. So negative goes there. And there are your 2 brackets. So 3x plus 1 and x minus 2. If you do the box method, so the box method is when you put the 3x squared in there and the minus 2 there. We are looking though for numbers that multiply to minus 6 because you do 3 times 2, and numbers that add to minus 5. So numbers that multiply to minus 6 and add to minus 5 will be, is that negative 6 plus 1? So I put in a negative 6x and a positive 1x. You look for things in common on each row and column. So if I look at the top row, there's definitely a 3x in common. On the bottom row, it looks like there's nothing, so that means it's really just a number 1. On the first column, they both have an x, and on the second column, they both divide by minus 2. And then there's your brackets that way. 3x plus 1 and x minus 2. So whichever method you use, we still come out with that. You then split it into 2 equations. And then that gives you 3x equals minus 1, so x equals minus 1/3. And this one gives you x equals 2. Now x was a length, So, like, you can't have a negative length, so we discard that one, so that's not possible. Okay, you can't have a negative length. So x equals 2, but the question wanted the length of the lawn. So the length, remember, was 3x. So the length was 3 times 2, which was 6. So final answer, length is 6 metres. These questions aren't nice, but the part B is always just factorise and put equal to 0. So even if you can't do the part A, the part B is still doable. Okay, thank you very much.